There's a war behind your eyes. Not of bullets, but silence. You sit in rooms where smiles lie, where handshakes cut deeper than knives. And yet, you say nothing. They think your silence is weakness. But silence is where assassins are born. You're not soft. You're restrained. You're not lost. You're watching. Every betrayal left you quieter and colder. They don't see the wolf behind your stare. You were forged by nights no one survived with you. Scars turned to armor. Emotion turned to strategy. The world will feed you poison with a smile. Your power is learning to sip without dying. This is not a lesson. This is an unveiling of the mind that manipulates the manipulators. And if you're ready, come into the storm. The first cut never heals. Not really. It scars. And if you're quiet enough, if you sit with it long enough, it starts whispering things most men are too scared to hear. You remember the moment, don't you? When you trusted, really trusted. Maybe it was a friend, maybe a woman, maybe even yourself. You let the guard down. You showed a piece of your core, not the mask, not the armor, but the vulnerable truth underneath. And they used it. Not by accident. Not fully. They knew what they were doing. And something in you broke, not loudly, quietly, like a snapped wire deep inside the walls. No one else heard it, but you did. It wasn't just pain, it was clarity, laced with venom. You stopped seeing the world the way you wanted it to be, and started seeing it for what it is. That's the moment the strategist is born. A man isn't forged in peace, he's shaped in betrayal, bent by disillusion, tempered by loss. Because that first cut, the one that never heals, it doesn't fade, it etches. And if you're smart, you don't try to cover it. You trace it, you study it, like reading enemy terrain before war. They didn't just betray you, they revealed you, exposed your blind spots. And if you really sit with that truth, you'll see something darker. Not all manipulation comes from the outside. Sometimes we're the ones doing it, to ourselves. You let them in. You chose to believe the lies, because the fantasy was easier than the truth. You weren't naive. You were comfortable. That's worse. How many times did you ignore the signs? That tone in their voice, the hesitation in their eyes, the inconsistencies you buried under optimism. You knew, deep down you knew, but you smiled, you nodded, you convinced yourself the storm wasn't coming. You lied to yourself, because it felt safer than standing alone in the rain. The first betrayal was internal. Only after that do others take their swing. So now the game changes. Before you try to outmaneuver the world, you learn to stop lying to the man in the mirror. The mirror drill. You write it all down. The moment they used you. No filters. No softening. Just facts. Then you read it. Again. And again. Until the sting wears off and strategy takes its place. You strip away the excuses. The maybe they meant well. The it's partly my fault. No, you were used. Face it. Own it. Weaponize it. Next strategic scar reading. Every betrayal teaches you something about yourself. Where you were weak. Where you trusted too quickly. Where you wanted love more than you wanted truth. Those aren't just wounds. They're coordinates. You plot them like a general planning his next campaign. You weren't betrayed. You were unmasked. The scar didn't close. It became a map. Every cut, a lesson. Every lie, a signal. Every failure, a footprint leading to something colder and cleaner. Detachment, not numbness, not bitterness, just the removal of illusion. You still feel, but now you filter. You still trust, but now you test. You still move forward, but now you carry a blade under the cloak of calm. This is what they don't tell you about self-mastery. It's not about being untouchable. It's about being unguardable. Not because you're too strong, but because there's nothing left to take. You gave it all once, got burned. Now, you give nothing for free. You calculate. You read people like chessboards, not fairy tales. And yet, you're not cruel. You're just done pretending. Done playing the fool. Done being the one who loves louder than he's loved. Done making peace with people who profit from your silence. The warrior doesn't hate his scars. He studies them. He sharpens his instincts on them. He remembers, not to suffer, to win, because the first cut never heals. It becomes the reason you never bleed the same way again. Power doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't chase, doesn't flinch, doesn't explain. It just is. It sits, still, like a storm building on the horizon. Silent, unmoved, inevitable. You've seen it. The man who walks into a room and doesn't need to say a word. People feel him, not because he's loud, not because he performs, but because his silence demands respect louder than most men's screams ever will. This is the throne built from silence, not the silence of submission, not the silence of weakness, the silence of command. Most men don't understand this. They think dominance is about volume, about interruption, about how fast you can bark your opinion into a conversation. But kings don't bark. They observe. While pawns chatter, kings calculate. While manipulators twist words like daggers, kings wait, watching them bleed themselves dry with their own ego. Because real power, it's restraint. It's watching someone try to provoke you, and staying still, not because you're passive, but because you're in control, because you know the first reaction is emotion. And emotion is a currency you don't spend cheaply. You use the delayed response principle, that moment where your blood rises, where your pride wants to strike back, to prove, to react. You pause, you let the silence stretch. You own it, you let them squirm inside it. Because the longer you wait, the more they reveal. People expose their desperation in silence. They talk too much, they over-explain. They reach for validation they never earned. You give them rope, and they hang themselves with it. 3 silence rule. Someone tries to test you. You don't answer the first time. You don't answer the second. You watch. Let them speak 3 times. You'll notice something strange. Their confidence drops. Their voice starts to shift. Their rhythm breaks. Because the silence isn't empty. It's pressure, and pressure always reveals the cracks. Every second you hold your tongue, you tighten the chessboard.
Insane.
And when you do speak, each word should feel like a loaded gun. Measured, weighted, lethal. You don't talk to fill space. You talk to direct the war, to cut through the fog, to remind people, you don't talk unless it's worth listening to. And if they can't handle the silence, they were never built for the storm. You've got to ask yourself, how many times did your voice weaken your position? How many times did your ego need to be heard, when silence would have made you feared? See, power isn't noise. It's gravity, and gravity doesn't scream to be felt. It pulls, constantly, quietly. You want respect, don't demand it. Don't preach it. Create the kind of silence where people lean in, not because they have to, but because they can't look away. That's when you win. Not by being louder, but by being unshakable. Most men will never get this. They'll keep talking themselves into irrelevance. But not you. You're not here to be heard. You're here to build a kingdom in the shadows, one brick at a time. Every moment of stillness, every calculated pause, every stare that says, I see more than I say. That's how kings are made. Not in the spotlight, but in the silence. Because in the end, it's not who speaks the most that controls the room. It's the man who doesn't need to. And if your words don't carry weight like steel, don't speak. Because silence builds kingdoms, and noise buries pawns. They watch for the twitch, the blink, the shift in your tone, a hesitation in your gaze. Because manipulators don't attack strength, they provoke reaction, and they feed on the scent of your need to be liked, understood, accepted. But a wolf doesn't flinch. He observes, breath steady, eyes unmoving, not cold, calculated. He doesn't chase approval. He doesn't fold to pressure. He sits in it, lets it crawl over his skin like frost, and never shows his teeth until it's time to bite. Ask yourself, when's the last time you paused? Not out of confusion, but strategy. Most men are reactive, controlled by the external. A glance makes them spiral. A tone shakes their confidence. One sideways comment, and their entire mood collapses. That's not strength. That's dependence in disguise. You think you're powerful, but you're a puppet, wired to the strings of people who don't even respect you. And they know it. They can feel the flinch. It's not always physical. Sometimes it's the way you try to fill silence with nervous words, or how your smile tightens when someone disrespects you, but you let it slide, because you don't want to seem insecure. That's not kindness. It's fear. Fear of being disliked. Fear of confrontation. Fear of being alone in your stance. And manipulators smell it. like blood in the water. Every flinch is a transaction. You give power away, hoping it buys you peace, but peace built on approval is rented. And the rent is due every time someone disagrees with you. So you stop flinching. You kill the addiction to being liked. You cut the cord between your worth and their reaction. And what's left? Stillness, presence, that unnerving calm that unsettles insecure people. Because they can't move you. They push, and nothing happens. They poke, and you just watch. Your silence makes them sweat. And when you do speak, your words cut deeper. Because they weren't used as defense, but as direction. This is where you start using the 5-second rule of stillness. In confrontation, pause. 5 seconds. Let the discomfort burn in your chest like a controlled fire. Let the silence stretch until they feel the need to move first. Most people crumble in those 5 seconds. They reveal their intention, their weakness, their need. But you stay still. You become the storm behind the mountain, unseen, unmoving, unavoidable. And that stillness, it's not natural, it's earned. You build it by mastering the one battle most men run from: the war inside. Start with the internal weather check. Every morning, ask yourself, what do I want to feel today? Then choose the opposite. Why? Because discipline is built in resistance. If you want comfort, chase discomfort. If you want confidence, walk through fear. If you want peace, train through chaos. You don't wait for feelings to lead. You lead them. You become the architect of your state. Because flinching doesn't start in the body. It starts in the mind. It starts with letting the world dictate how you feel, instead of commanding your own storm. So now, when someone disrespects you, you don't shrink. You don't overcompensate. You sit, still, breathing like a wolf under moonlight, silent, watching, timeless. And if they keep pushing, you let them collapse under their own need to be seen. Because the man who doesn't flinch becomes the man they stop testing. And when the world realizes it can't move you, it adjusts to you. That's the quiet terror of presence. The gravity of a man who doesn't need to be liked, only respected. And respect isn't requested, it's felt, earned in how you carry yourself when everyone else is performing. So the next time you feel the urge to twitch, to smile when it isn't real, to speak just to be heard, pause. 5 seconds, then longer. Because every second you don't flinch, another weak man breaks. And if you want to win in this life, go broke on flinching. To defeat the shadows, you first have to see them. Not run, not rage, just see. That's how you disarm the manipulator. Not by calling him out, but by seeing him for what he is. Not a villain, but a mirror, a test, a predator of attention, a master of subtle war. Most men never learn to spot him, because manipulation doesn't wear fangs. It wears masks. Sometimes it's charm, sometimes it's concern, sometimes it's concern, sometimes it's silence so heavy it forces you to speak just to fill the air. But always, it moves one step ahead of your awareness. Until now, there are 4 masks, and once you name them, you start pulling their strings, instead of getting tangled in them. The first is the mirror. He reflects your image back at you, only shinier, says what you want to hear, mirrors your values, your voice, your wounds. You think you're connecting. You think, finally, someone who gets me. But you're not connecting. You're being studied. He doesn't like you. He's copying you. And the second he gets what he wants, the mirror shatters, and you realize you were only talking to yourself. This is where you use the mirror kill. You flip the reflection. You repeat their words back, but slightly twisted, just enough to test for truth. Wait. Didn't you say you hated that job? Watch the crack appear. Watch their story shake. Liars hate being reflected. It's not confrontation, it's precision. The next mask is the puppet master. He's not loud. He's not aggressive. He's strategic, always pulling strings behind the scenes. You feel guilt around him, but you don't know why. You feel like you owe him, even when you've given nothing. This is the man who does you favors you didn't ask for, and then quietly collects. This is the boss who praises you just enough to own your loyalty, but never enough to let you rise. This is the friend who keeps score in silence. And here, you don't fight him directly. You use the false retreat. You act like you've stepped back, like you've made a mistake. You give him room to move forward, to gloat, to relax. And that's when you see the plan.
Because manipulators need movement, stillness starves them. Once they overextend, you cut the string, swift, surgical. Then there's the martyr, the emotional blackmailer. He bleeds loudly, always the victim, always wounded, always suffering because of you. He'll cry before you raise your voice. He'll collapse before you walk away. And he never asks for power. He forces you to hold it by making you feel like the villain if you drop it. This one, you don't argue with. You detach. You let the silence do the bleeding. You nod. You say little. You stop feeding the wound with your energy. Eventually, they either grow up or bleed out. And finally, the most dangerous mask, the kingmaker. He praises you, lifts you, gives you power you didn't earn. Not because he believes in you, but because he plans to collect on it. He makes you feel like a giant, and then slowly reminds you who gave you the crown. This isn't friendship. This isn't mentorship. It's debt disguised as love. And the longer you wear the robe he handed you, the harder it is to walk without asking for permission. But here's the truth. A false king only rules when the real one is silent. You don't need his crown. You burn it. You build your own, one decision at a time. See, the manipulator isn't strong. He's just early. He sees the game before you, learns faster, moves quieter. But once you see him, once you name the mask, the illusion dies. He's not a threat. He's a pattern. And patterns can be broken. The moment you stop needing to be understood, the moment you stop flinching for approval, explaining your choices, overextending to stay in good graces, you break the game. Because manipulators don't control people, they control your need to be chosen. Kill that, and you become untouchable. They'll try to provoke you, test you, trigger the version of you that still doubts. But if you hold your ground, in silence, in presence, in strategy, they fold. Because a man who sees the mask never bows to it, and a king who knows himself never needs to prove it. They want you to choose. Be soft, or be sharp. Be kind, or be cold. Be human, or be strong. But the truth is, power lives in the paradox. You were never meant to pick one. You were meant to balance all three. Like blades drawn in different directions, but fused at the hilt. Cold eyes, warm heart, ruthless mind. That's the trifecta. And mastering it, that is the real test of a man. Most don't make it. They either go numb, lose the heart, become wolves who can't feel, or they drown in empathy, hearts wide open, bleeding at every word, manipulated by every tear. But there's a third path, a colder fire, a cleaner edge. It starts with your eyes. They have to go cold, not lifeless, clear. You don't wear rose-colored lenses. You see the game. You see motives. You read body language like a hunter tracking prey. You stop giving people the benefit of the doubt. You start giving them the benefit of observation. Let them reveal themselves, and they will. When you don't flinch, when you don't interrupt, when your gaze doesn't break, people expose who they really are. And when they do, you move with a ruthless mind, not cruel, not loud, strategic. You don't punish, you don't cry, you decide. Because kindness without a line becomes weakness. That's where the boundary script becomes your weapon. I understand, but I don't allow. Say it once, calm, controlled. Say it twice, firmer, final. Say it the third time, and you say it by walking away. Your warmth is not a currency. Your care is not a contract. You don't owe anyone your peace just because they're loud about their pain. A king bleeds in private, but his crown never slips. That's the difference. You don't stop caring. You just stop leaking. You build internal walls, not to keep love out, but to filter who deserves it. And when it's time to choose, compassion or calculation, you run the fire and ice drill. Ask yourself, does this moment need warmth or war? And then act accordingly. You might comfort someone 1 minute and cut them off the next. That's not being a monster. That's being precise. Controlled fire warms. Unchecked fire burns your house down. You know how many men are burning in the name of being good. Good fathers who never say no. Good friends who never hold a line. Good lovers who let their soul rot, trying to heal someone else's darkness. It's not goodness. It's guilt in disguise. And it's time to outgrow it. You don't turn off your heart. You guard it. You don't hate people. You just stop letting their chaos become your blueprint. You learn to care without bending, to love without losing sight, to forgive without forgetting the lesson. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. Let them, because they mistook your warmth for naivety. Now, they'll learn to respect the frost. You don't smile to be liked. You smile because you chose to, not because they earned it. You don't explain yourself, you execute. You don't chase peace, you command it. And when the world tests you, because it will, you won't break, you'll calculate. The heart still beats, but the eyes stay sharp, the mind stays ruthless, and the crown never slips.
The serpent doesn't bite first. It dances. It coils softly around your trust, whispering comfort while calculating where to strike. That's the kind of manipulation most men never see coming. Not the loud betrayal, not the sharp disrespect, but the smile, the warmth, the charm. That's the most dangerous kind. Because when the devil smiles, most people lean in. And if you've ever wondered why you fell for someone so fast, why you trusted them so deeply, so early, why it felt like fate, here's the truth. You weren't loved, you were studied. They watched how you moved, how you reacted, what made you feel seen, powerful, needed. And they gave you just enough of it to own you. That's how soft power works. It's not a punch, it's a pull, not forceful, seductive. And that's why it works. Because it gives you the illusion of choice, the flattery, the praise, the admiration. It didn't come from affection, it came from calculation. They didn't fall in love with you. They fell in love with your need to be adored. And once they found it, they fed it. Until you needed their validation like oxygen. And the second they pulled it back, you chased. You explained. You doubted yourself. That's the trap. They make you question your worth, and then offer themselves as the only cure. You think, if I can just get their attention back, I'll feel whole again. But here's the real sickness. You were never whole to begin with. They didn't create the void. They found it, used it, played it like a violin in a burning house. So now you learn. You stop being flattered by praise you didn't earn. You stop mistaking charm for care. You run the charm dissection exercise. Write down the compliments you've been given. All of them. Then, cross out the ones that came too fast. The ones that felt too perfect. The ones that made you feel special before you ever proved you were. Those weren't affirmations. They were hooks. And when someone gives you everything up front, attention, praise, access, admiration, you ask one question: what are they trying to own? Because not every "I believe in you" is a gift. Some are leashes. And most people don't want you to be free. They want you to be grateful. Grateful for their approval. Grateful for their attention. Grateful for their validation. Because somewhere deep down you still think it means love. It doesn't. You run the affection audit. Ask yourself, did they admire me? Or did they control me through praise? Did they see your power? Or did they shape you to fit their design? Were you loved? Or were you managed? You can be alone without being lonely. That's the shift. Approval is not affection. Comfort is not commitment. And charm is a weapon used by those who fear being truly known. The ones who smile with perfect timing. Who know just what to say. Who make you feel seen before you've shown them anything real. They're not offering intimacy. They're offering influence. And influence in the wrong hands becomes a collar around your throat. But the moment you see it, it all breaks. You stop chasing smiles. You stop needing applause. You become dangerous. Because a man who doesn't flinch at flattery can't be seduced. He listens. He observes. But he waits. And when he hears, you're different, he nods. Not because he believes it, but because he's heard it before, 100 times. From lips that never meant it. He's not cold. He's clear. Because when the devil smiles, he takes notes. Then he walks away. Most men fear the quiet. They fear the empty room, the unanswered message, the weekends with no plans. Because in that stillness, there's no applause, no mirrors, no audience to play for, just you, and the truth. That's why exile terrifies them. But not you, not anymore. Because you've come to understand what they never will. Isolation isn't punishment, it's preparation. The world calls it loneliness. You call it strategy. You don't need noise to feel alive. You don't need approval to breathe. You don't need to be seen, to see everything.
They laughed when you disappeared, mocked your silence, questioned your distance, but you weren't retreating. You were reloading, because solitude isn't absence, it's ignition. It's where kings are born, where wolves remember the scent of the hunt, where warriors remove the rust from their blades and sharpen in the dark, while everyone else parties under flickering lights. You eat alone now, not because you have to, but because you chose to. And when you return, they'll choke on the man you became. You live by the isolation calendar. 30 days, no validation, no digital applause, no begging for relevance in conversations that never mattered. You sit with the cravings, let them pass, let the ego scream, then let it starve. You journal the withdrawals, you watch your mind twitch like a drug addict needing approval, but you don't give in, because you're not here to be liked. You're here to be lethal, and only silence can teach you that kind of control. You write your vision now, not just goals, not just dreams, a world, a kingdom, one only you understand, and then, you walk it alone. No explanations, no justifications, no invitations for others to approve your path. Let them think you're lost. That's how they miss the rise. You want to know the exile's advantage. He doesn't waste energy performing. He doesn't dance for praise, doesn't flinch for company, doesn't water himself down to be digestible. He becomes indigestible, hard to read, harder to control, and when the world comes looking, they don't find the same man. They find a ghost with a map, a strategist, a force. The exile doesn't return to be welcomed, he returns to conquer. So next time you feel alone, don't run, lean in, feel the weight of your own mind, sit inside it like a storm shelter during a war. Because exile isn't emptiness, it's the place where distraction dies, where clarity sharpens, where boys break, and men emerge. And the man who can sit in silence, he never begs for noise again. Let them party. Let them post. Let them spend their days chasing crumbs of approval. You're building an empire they'll never see coming. The exile eats alone, but his enemies choke on his return. Your mind is not a house, it's a fortress. Not one with open doors and welcome mats. Not a place for every opinion to wander in. Not a shelter for gossip, flattery, threats, or fear. No, it's stone, cold, deliberate. And there's only one key, yours. You don't give it away for comfort, not for praise, not for peace, because once a man learns to guard his inner gates, no enemy can breach him. This is the final stage, not anger, not detachment, but command, stillness beneath storms, that quiet edge where every word is filtered, every emotion examined, every thought interrogated. Who sent this? That's the question. Every time something rises inside, doubt, rage, lust, panic, you ask, who sent this? If it wasn't you, it doesn't belong. That's the inner gatekeeper, the one who stands watch, the one who checks every arrival before it's allowed to enter your temple. He guards your thoughts like a sniper guards a border. Nothing gets through without permission, because the mind is real estate, and most men rent it out to whoever's loudest. The news, the ex, the friend who gossips like it's oxygen, the fake mentor who flatters you to soften your spine. They get in, they build chairs in your mind, sit down, start talking, and without knowing it, your confidence gets rearranged by ghosts. But not you, not anymore. You don't react to bait, you see it, you stare at it, then you walk away from it, because mastery doesn't mean you don't feel, it means your feelings don't drive. You can watch fear rise like smoke, and still walk into the fire. You can feel the flattery coat your ego, and not lick a drop of it. You can hear your name in someone else's mouth, and not flinch. Why? Because your fortress is sealed, not closed, guarded. And that's the shift. You don't need to fight every insult. You don't need to respond to every challenge. You don't need to chase every opportunity that knocks. Some doors stay shut. Some storms pass without acknowledgement. Because not every emotion deserves your energy. That's where the emotional blacklist comes in. You sit down, you write them out. The ones that make you weak. The ones that bend your will when they rise. Approval hunger, shame, jealousy, desperation masked as loyalty. You name them, then you starve them. Every day, you feel them knock, and you don't answer. You feel them scream, and you whisper, no, again, and again, and again, until they lose their power. That's how steel is forged. Not by nature, by choice. Pain doesn't make you hard. Rage doesn't make you powerful. Only discipline sharpens a mind into a fortress. And here's the truth, most men will never hear. The man who controls his thoughts, controls the room. He's unshakable, not because he's never hit, but because he never kneels. He's not the loudest, he's the last one standing. And when everything collapses around him, he remains, eyes calm, voice slow, mind clear. He doesn't flinch at chaos. He doesn't bow to noise. He just listens, filters, and moves. The world doesn't get to shape him, because the key to the gates, it's never left his hand. You don't chase power, you become the man it fears.